We're going to be building this design together. It's a combination of chain blocks and star blocks that make up this simple quilt. We're going to work through adding all of the shapes and pieces that we need for this quilt. And when we're done, you'll see exactly how Mathless works and how easy it is to calculate pattern math. For starters, we need to add the fabrics that we're going to need for this design. When you create a pattern, the pattern will be initialized with one fabric already, but I need to change the color of it. I'm going to give this a pink color for fabric A. Now these fabric names and swatches don't really have a lot of meaning in the actual calculation. They're just visual cues that help as you're building out the pattern. The colors are how you'll choose fabrics and associate them with each of the shapes that you're going to add later. And the fabric names are what will show up in your fabric requirements table and cutting instructions. I need to add 2 more fabrics, the yellow for the star centers and the gray background. To do that, I'll just click the Add Fabric button a couple more times. Now that I have my fabrics, I need to start adding my quilt sizes and block types. We'll start with the quilt sizes. To add a quilt size, all you have to do is click Add Size. We'll give it a name. For this particular example, we're going to be creating a crib size and a throw size. I'll create a second one for the throw size. Now I'll need to add the width and height of my finished quilts. Note that this is the width and height of the finished quilt, not the width and height of your blocks. For the crib size, it'll be 40 by 48 inches. For the throw size, it'll be 56 by 72 inches. Now we need to add our block types. You'll see that the pattern was created already with one block type initialized, but I wouldn't rename that, so it's something more useful for me. To do that, I'll just click into the square and rename it. Now I have the block type created for my star blocks, but I also need a block type created for my chain blocks. To do that, I'll just click Add Block Type. Now all I need to do is input the quantities of each block type needed for each size. For the crib size, that's 15 of each. For the throw size, I'm going to need 32 star blocks and just 31 chain blocks. You'll notice as I'm working through this that the boxes are going from tinted red to white. The red tinting is just a visual indicator that you need to enter something in that block in order to be able to perform the calculation. It's necessary information for the calculation. All right, I've got all of my quilt sizes and block types inputted. Now I can start working on adding my shapes. To do that, all I have to do is click Add Row. You'll see a row's been created, but it's empty. We've got a lot of red in there. What I'm going to do first is input the block type. I'll start with my star blocks, which are composed of a center square, 4 corner squares, and 4 flying geese. We'll start with the center square. I'm going to enter center square into the name. That's just a little note to myself so I can remember what this piece is for later. It doesn't actually have any effect on the calculation. Next, I'll enter the block type. I'll also choose the shape, in this case, a square. Squares don't have a method, or rather they have just one method, but you still need to enter a method. That's how Mathless knows what kind of calculations to use. For the center square, we'll need just 1 piece per block, so I'll enter 1 in the pieces per block. All of my blocks are going to finish at 8 inches, so that center square in this case needs to be 4 inches. 4 inches is the finished dimension, not the unfinished dimension. We'll get to that later. Because this is a square, the other dimension can be calculated from the first, so I don't actually have to enter the height here. Note that the entry in the height column may not update. That's okay, Mathless still knows what to do. Now that we've got all the base information about our shape entered, I can add my fabrics. You'll notice that the Edit Fabrics button has become ungrayed. We're allowed to click it now that we've chosen a shape and method. This is the Fabrics panel. This is where I can associate each fabric with the shape that I've indicated. For the center squares of my stars, I'm going to need yellow, fabric B. Once I've selected the fabric, I just hit save, and now I can move on to the next shape. I'm going to add the pieces for my flying geese next, so we'll add another row just like before. I'm going to label these flying geese. And associate them with the star block just like before. However, for my shape now, I'm going to choose flying geese. For flying geese, you have a couple of methods. You can choose the stitch and flip method or the 4 at a time method, also known as the no waste method. That's the one I like to use, so that's what I'm going to choose. Now I need 4 flying geese per block. Don't worry about the fact that we're using the 4 at a time method. Mathless will handle that. And again, because the flying geese always has to be in a 2-to-1 ratio, we only need to enter one of the dimensions, in this case, the smaller dimension. My flying geese need to be 2 inches by 4 inches, so I'm going to enter 2 inches here. Now that we have that information in, we can go ahead and assign our fabrics. You'll notice that each of the fabric placements are numbered in the image now. We just need to select the swatches that are associated with each of those fabric positions. I want a flying geese with a gray body and pink corners, so that's what I'm going to choose. The last piece I need for my star blocks are the corner squares, and so I'll add those pieces just like before. We'll need 4 of them per block, and they'll need to be 2 inches square. These corner squares need to be gray. Alrighty, I've got all 3 pieces that I need for my star blocks. Now I can move on to my chain blocks. This block is made up of a couple of different components. 4 patches for the corners, a square for the center, and then 4 rectangles for the sides. I want to use strip piecing for those 4 patch units, so I'm going to add a row and designate the shape as strip piecing. For the method, I'm going to select continuous. That is the only method available right now, but in the future there may be additional ones. This just means that I am going to cut all of my strip units from whole width of fabric pieces. I'm not going to try and cut down those strips into smaller chunks first, even if that means I'll have some left over. Now I'm going to need 4 patches per block, and each 4 patch is going to need 2 strip units, giving me a total of 8 strip units per block. So that's the number I'm going to add here. For the width for strip piecing units, you always want to enter the width of the strip unit that you are cutting from the larger strip set. For my corner 4 patch units, this is going to be a 1-inch wide strip unit. Now I can click Edit Fabrics. This is going to bring up a slightly different panel, specialized to the fact that we're using strip units. Here we can add as many strips as are in our strip unit, and we can also specify the strip heights, the width of the strips that you're sewing together to create your strip set. For the 4 patches, I'm going to need 2 strips, so I'll add a second strip here. Each strip height is going to be 1 inch. One of those strips will be pink and the other one will be gray, so I'll select those colors here. Now that I have all that information entered, I can go ahead and click Save. So those are the strip units for my 4 patches. Now we need to add the square for the center. Now this square happens to be the exact same size as that first center square for the star block, so what I'm going to do instead of starting from scratch is just go ahead and click the copy icon for that row to create a second version of it that I can edit. You'll notice that it's copied everything over verbatim. All I have to do now is just adjust the things that are different for the chain block. That means changing the block type and the color. The last set of pieces that I need for the chain block are the side rectangles. We'll go ahead and add those now. I'll need 4 of them per block. And because this is a rectangle, I will have to specify both dimensions. These need to be 2 inches by 4 inches. We'll add our fabric. And we're ready to go. Important to note, it didn't actually matter if I put 4 inches by 2 inches or 2 inches by 4 inches here. Because of the settings that I have for this pattern, Mathless is going to go ahead and switch those dimensions around depending on what will minimize the fabric the most. We'll talk about how to change that setting later. Now that we have all of our pieces added for both of our blocks, all that's left to do is click Calculate and let Mathless do all the work. This can take up to a couple of minutes depending on how many pieces you have in your quilt. Now that Mathless is done calculating, you can see that we've got fabric requirements and cutting instructions for both sizes outputted below. All you have to do is copy and paste these into whatever program you happen to be writing your quilt patterns in, and you're guaranteed error-free quilt math every single time. Pretty cool. Now let's say, for instance, that we wanted to add another size after the fact. That's easy enough to do. All we have to do is come back up to the quilt sizes table and click Add Size. I'm going to add a king size, so I will label that and put in my dimensions. In this instance, we need 85 star blocks and 84 chain blocks. That's it. That's all I've got to do. Now I can just recalculate and I will have all of the cutting instructions and fabric requirements for my king size. Ta-da!